Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're at. This is going to be sort of a relaxed type of question and answer because you're brand new. Welcome to Parks on the Air. And before we get started, let's get the preliminaries out of the way. What I'm going to share with you is just some of the questions that reoccur all the time. So if you're on the Facebook page, always scroll down. Scroll down for quite a while and you might see some of the questions that you have get answered for you. Up in the top section, you'll see a tab that says Files. I suggest you take time to go to it, look at it, and see if there's some other questions that are being answered by somebody who's created a file for you to download. That's what it's there for. It's for you brand new hunters and or activators to utilize the information by many of the other fellow Parks on the Air personnel. Now, you're brand new. You may have a question that's simple to you that gets repeated 150 times, so sometimes the people that may answer you may be a little sharp. It's okay, just shake it off and understand. Everybody's different in their level of patience. If you have not, because you got excited about joining and registering for Parks on the Air, read the frequently asked questions, there is a ton of information. No, you're not going to read it in 10 minutes. Anything that's good in life is worth taking the time to read it and think about it and things of that nature. So don't be mad at me for saying read that, but please take the time. You're watching a video now and it's good because it's just going to give you some simple basic things that pop up all the time. I'm going to go through them. I'm going to try to share my experience, what I've learned. What is my credibility? I don't have any. I've been licensed since 1978, so I don't know a lot about amateur radio. I've been in Parks on the Air since November of 2020 after 10 years getting off of amateur radio because it got to be a Gerald net, and that's my opinion, means that's all everybody complained about is their woes and me's and woes and that's, and never done anything positive. And not done anything to have fun. They sat on their home and turn their beams around and turn their powers on and think that that's the best thing in the world. So Parks on the Air has given us an opportunity to get outside of the house. Run 12 volt, 15 amp hour batteries, 6 amp hour batteries. Use end-fed antennas, use vertical antennas, use slinky antennas. So let's get started with this. And again, I hope you understand that this is just one person's opinion. Nobody's directed me, asked me to, or told me not to share the information. So it comes from me, myself, and I, and all three of us so far agree. Hunters do not send a login. You work whoever and all your activators you hear. You log them at your own home if you're using QRZ or Log GM or Hammers or whatever software program that you use to log at home. You just keep your log. That's just for your records. I use N3FJP for my log, but I also use it because I'm an activator. We'll get into that. So does a hunter send a login? Nope. How do I track it? Well, you log it on your own software program that you're using on your own computer or device, tablet. That's what you do. I log on paper and pencil when I go out in the field. We'll talk about that. Again, hunters, you do not have to worry about sending a login. So don't stress out. Now, hunters, you worked me 24 hours ago. I'm on vacation. And I'm probably going to run 6, 7, 8, 10, 15, however many parks over a period of time. And I'm going to send them all in when I get back. So don't be impatient. For a number drawn out of the air, we'll say there's over 9,000 U.S. parks. The parks aren't going nowhere, generally speaking. Okay? But keep in mind that when your activators are out in the field, that's why I call it field day every day, okay? When they're out there, they're fighting elements most of you hunters do not realize. And as a hunter, please, there's 150 of you all running 100 watts, generally speaking, and that activator at the other end that you're hailing or calling is getting clobbered automatically. So if they don't hear you, they're not trying to avoid you. All they hear is a rumble. On my YouTube channel, there's a place that says how I log a paper log. It lets you hear some pileups, and I'm only one of many different people, so don't take my word at it. Check other people's out. Again, hunters, you don't have to send a log in. Keep a log, yes. Activators, if you don't send your log in, the folks that you contacted, they're not going to get credit. And many times, if you're not sure on a call, you're going to get a busted call, and it's going to happen to you more than once, more than 10 times. Because no matter how hard we as activators try to get the call right, it sometimes becomes difficult. So activators, your job, when you've completed your run, whether it's 1 day, 2 day, 2 weeks out, whatever, then you please get the logs in. Simple as that. Now, back to the same scenario, hunters. There's no specific frequency that activators go to. Activators. There's no specific frequencies that you go to. Based on your class of license dictates what frequency spectrum that you can operate and the mode you can operate in, period. If you want to operate FT8 and it's authorized in that part of the band, you don't have to ask permission. It's there. If you're a technician and you're with me and I'm operating in a general class or I'm operating a advanced class, which is my class, I'll say it again. Now, technician, if you are with me and I am operating in the general portion of the band and the advanced portion of the band, the only call sign that you can use if you're going to speak on the radio is mine. Your class of license, technician class of license, does not authorize your class or call sign to be used on those frequencies. That's FCC, that's not me. Okay, but for you to follow the guidelines, if you're going to make a contact and talk to somebody, you're going to have to use my call sign. On the 10-meter portion of the band, 28.2 to 28.3, I think it is, or 28.3, 28.5, is a section that is strictly for you on the HF that you can talk. Now, remember, you have privileges in CW, but most of you, probably like most of us years ago, didn't want to do CW. Well, now it's not a requirement, where back then in the 70s, it was a requirement. So when you go out with somebody with parks on the air, and you're a technician, and I'm stressing this because this is important, You cannot utilize your call sign out of band. You're not licensed for it. So study a little harder, get the general. It gives you a lot of territory and a lot of fun. That's pretty much what we're going to say there. Now, the technicians, your question is, well, can I operate on 2 meters and 440 on simplex? Yes, you can, within your class of license. But you cannot use a repeater to make the contacts. It must be on simplex or on FM, where FM is authorized. Is it practical? I won't say it's practical. It's been done, but it's very difficult unless you have a whole group of people with you at the park, all with HTs or mobile units, because of almost being line of sight, and there's not that much activity. There is activity. So stay within your guideline of your license class and operate with what you can do. Now, for those of you that want digital based on your class of licenses, also the frequencies that you can operate digital. And I am not one to ask on digital because I don't like it. I don't want to do it. And I'm not against anybody who likes it and does it, but I don't have information on it, nor do I have a desire. But again, it goes by the frequency, the mode, how you connect up, and how much power you run. You do have to watch your limits because a lot of antennas that are set up on digital are not necessarily set up for digital of 100 watts. There may be some out there. So know what you're looking at for antennas if you're going to operate that way. Every day we see it, brand new hams. What's the best? Okay. There is no best antenna. There is no best radio. There is no best software for logging your contacts, okay? There is many different varieties of radios out there. There's one big element that you need to look at first is what can I afford? And you may have a want over here in your right hand, but on your left hand is reality, says that's all I've got. So I'm going to have to stay within those means. There's no best radio. Same procedure. No best antenna. There are many types of antennas, and this is where you get to practice. Did you hear that? Practice and experiment. It's not a pull off the shelf, hook it up, and start talking on the radio. Utilize your head and your hands and see what you can make work. People use slinkies. Did you hear that? Slinkies. And they tuned it with a tuner. A resonant cut frequency antenna is the best for the transceiver on the band you're on, whatever band it is. Now, I use an FT891. I use an FT991 Alpha. I use a ICOM 718, which is the best radio. I prefer the ICOM as a backup. I prefer the FT891 as my primary. And at home, my 991 Alpha is my house shack, period. That's me. I'm blessed. I have 3 radios, but some don't. Now, my radios are QRO and or QRP. They have the capability of being turned down. Let's talk about that just a moment outside of my notes. So QRP and QRO means QRO is 100 watts, QRP is 20 watts or less. That's the definition. Did you hear that? 20 watts or less for QRP, QRO, 100 watts or more. When stations are operating QRP, their power is not going out as it would if it was a QRO station, so they're not going to be heard as easily. which is a one way to slow down a activation if you spot it. Because you're not going to be spread all over the world. You're only going to spread half of the world because you're at half the power or less. There are times where I'm trying to work a pileup and cannot get into a pileup, but that person says he's only going to call for QRP stations. I flip the 991 from 100 down to 10 watts, and I get in first, second time. The reason being is because I'm not fighting everybody else and his brother and sister trying to reach you out there as an activator. So realize that as a activator, when you're running QRP, it's going to be hard for a long way people to hear you unless you turn the power up, which is going to create more activity, more contacts, and there it's learning how to handle it. But QRP works great, and I worked many of them. For me, most people know how to come at the end of it because I take a list, and I pick them up and I work them just as strong as the people that are 5'9". Okay, so we've talked about there's no best antenna, no best radio. If you want a delta loop, talk with the people that have them. If you want a vertical antenna, get with people and actually share some time with them. See if you can ride with them. Go out to an activation. Watch YouTube videos on how to set it up, how to take it down. I've got a video on mine. My choice of antennas known publicly. I use the ANFED by Vibraplex EF Quad. I have 3 of them. I have a backup in the car because you never go anywhere without a backup antenna. I have the main one, and then I have one at my house. Mike has one at his house. He has one in his truck. That's NC4XL. And I know several folks that we've shared our antenna of choice. That's our choice because we try to go where there's trees. There's not always trees, so everything changes. I just did a hamstick activation the other day, and I've done it more than once from a place where I could have put it up, but the elements of weather weren't going to be the best. I didn't want to set up and then have to fight and get wet or that type of thing, getting it down. So the other day I went out, I set a table up, I set a chair up, and we were watching the sky. And next thing I know, I seen raindrops hitting on the radio top and on the table. I says, folks, I'll be right back. And in 3 minutes, I had everything put away and inside the car, and I got myself back to activating. But that's only because of experience. The first time that happens to any of you, it'll scare the heck out of you. Okay. If you're going to run solar powered and you're going to buy solar panels, the suggestion is to buy the manufacturer's OEM charger. When you ask questions on Facebook about chargers, solar panels, and so forth, be specific to what you have or what you're looking for so people can be specific to answering your question. My batteries that I use an OEM charger. I don't use an aftermarket because of monies. I use what is made for it. I may pay for it overall, but I don't have any problems so far. So if you're going to run solar power, get the OEM charger for that item. Okay. When you work on the bands, we don't have an assigned frequency. It's the code of conduct from whatever band we're on. QRZ is the frequency in use, is the frequency in use. It is a very good practice to utilize that. Second thing is, the more that you're out there, you will learn what parts of the band to stay away from because of AM broadcast that you may hear underneath you and you can't figure out where the heterodyne's coming from. There may be known nets that are on at that frequency at this time, at this time, at this time. You'll learn that over a period of time. And the best experience is experiencing it for real when it happens. Now, I'm going to share something that you take with you as a backup. When your laptop dies, you take this as a backup. When your computer dies, you take this as a backup. When your cell phone dies, you take this as a backup. It's called paper and pencil. Because your other devices died does not mean your activation has to die. It means you gave up, probably. But if you take your pencil and paper and keep on going, you can still have a lot of fun. But it's up to you. Amateur radio was not built on laptops, was not built on iPads, was not built on other devices to go out with. Okay, so you do not have to spend more money to get your system set up so that you have an iPad that'll work, or a laptop that'll work, or if you're going to do FTH, you need this and you need that, so you got more things to possibly break down and or get broken in transit. The paper and pencil works pretty good. And I've spilled coffee on my paper and still been able to read it, but if you spill coffee on a device, it's not necessarily going to be there. The awards page, since you're a hunter now, I would suggest checking it daily. And the only reason you want to check it daily is every day you're making contacts with the different activators out there. You're accumulating achievement levels, and you don't realize it because you don't go there. You're going to get achievements at the very beginning for making 10 contacts with 10 different parks on one day, or the number of contacts with the same operator, the number of contacts in one state. It's just endless. It really is. Again, that is another part of the FAQ where it talks about awards. If you will take the time and just go look. A secret. Here's a secret. If you hear a call sign of an activator and you're in the app, type in their call in the app, and then when their call sign comes up, go over to the word profile and click on it. And that way you can see what this activator has done as far as the number of activations, the parks they've done, total number of contacts that they made. And if you scroll down, you'll see their achievement levels, where you don't have contests here, folks. Achievement levels, different levels that they've achieved by working those other parks out there or working other hunters while they're activating. So spend some time to take a look at that. I wanted to talk about activators, but I don't want to upset anybody here. But when you're working the activators, take some time to get to know them. And by that I mean listen to how they run their activation, period. It's their activation, hunters. Did you hear that? It is their activation. And if they ask you to paper, to spread out the calls, or they're going to take partials, or they're going to call by area 1s, 2s, 3s, whatever, that's what they're going to do. It's hard as a hunter to sit back and wait, but it's just as hard as an activator to try to figure out who did I hear when you got 20, 30, 40 people all calling at one time and nothing is decipherable until the very end, where the last person that said something gets their one call in. So in the process, you've taken 25 seconds to make one contact. Not that it's a race, it's not, but if people were to spread it out where the activator is able to get partial calls, or if they're going to do one at a time, they'll let you know. You'll learn that as a hunter how each activator works, and respect their works, their method, because that's them. That's our signature, so to speak. If you work me, it's very simple. I'm going to paper log. I'm going to ask you to spread them out. I'm going to go from the bottom back up, even when I have Mike with me. And Mike has been working with me for 20 years. He's one of a very few that can work with me because I work differently. But I get the contacts in, and we try to do it in a friendly, courteous manner at the same time. When you hear me call people by name, it's because I've learned their name. I'm not looking at a device that tells me who I'm talking to. I've talked pretty much about some of the basic things that you're being brand new are going to wonder. You can't get new parks in your area on the list. Don't even try. Don't get frustrated. There are many of us that have submitted nice parks, but they're city-owned or county-owned. They don't meet their criteria, and as a hunter or an activator, we're not the ones that design that criteria. That's done by Parks on the Air personnel. And at present, the moratorium is for a couple of years that no United States parks are going to be added to the list. Simple. Until we get the overseas parks situated and uploaded and on the air. And you look around, we're getting a lot of them there. So if you're up early in the morning, go to the spotting page, see who is where, and if you got the beam, swing it to them and go work them. Thank you for your patience. It's been 26 minutes, and I apologize, but I don't talk slow, I just talk. I hope that this helps. If not just one person, then I've done good. Don't ever hesitate to ask questions, but go back to what we repeat over and over and over. And if you're new, please understand it's very important. Read the frequently asked questions. If you are familiar with YouTube, go to YouTube channel and type in for a search POTA, Papa Oscar Tango Alpha, POTA, and subscribe to the POTA YouTube channel. You can get a bunch of free on-the-air advice, how-tos, answer your questions, information from many folks who have been out doing this for a year or two, or 3, or 4, and so forth. Thanks again. November Charlie 4XL Lima, North Carolina, for extreme lovers, and I'm not. As you see, I'm just a darling old man reaching out, trying to help. 73s till our next visit.